It's another beautiful day, and I feel like starting this episode with a real estate joke. What kind of house weighs the least? A lighthouse. What's up, everybody? I'm Sean Kelly, and this is chapter 5 of the real estate exam prep. This chapter is all about land use controls, and it'll be fairly quicker than some of the other previous chapters, I hope. Alright, first off, do you remember when you were younger, or maybe you do this now if you're a parent, but when you'd get in the car, your parents would say, "This car will not start until you buckle your seatbelt," and you knew it wasn't true, but you did it anyway? Well, I'm telling you right now, this chapter will not start until you click that subscribe button down below. And I'll just trust that you did it. Alright, there's a master plan. Every city has a long-term comprehensive plan that dates in the future 20 years or so. So every municipality needs a plan that addresses land use, public facilities, zoning, conservation, and noise abatement. And these usually all vary by county. When it comes to police power, the city has the right to create zoning. Police power is the right of a city government to enact laws for public health, public safety, and public welfare, and to enforce those laws. And now zoning. There's quite a few things to take into consideration when talking about zoning. What is the permitted use? Is it residential, commercial, industrial? And just because it might be zoned commercial and you can build a restaurant doesn't necessarily mean you can serve alcohol. There's a lot of rules around zoning. In zoning, there's also lot sizes, the type of building, there's setbacks, which is like your distance from the property lines. Then there's styles and appearances, which makes it hard to tell the difference between a McDonald's and a Burger King, because those golden arches will need to conform to how the rest of the style is in that certain area. The North Carolina Enabling Act is an act that gives every municipality their own power to regulate the use of the land. There is no state zoning here in North Carolina. Then there is cluster zoning, which is designed to create more open space in communities. You basically bunch up all of the properties into one part of this subdivision, and then you have a bunch of green space or trails, parks, ponds, other things over here that the whole community can use. Now for the enforcement of zoning ordinances. The land adjacent to a city limits is still regulated by that city. So for instance, if there's a property that's just outside that city limits, it's still regulated by the city of Charlotte, for instance. The term used allowing cities to go several miles outside of their jurisdiction to enforce zoning is called extraterritorial jurisdiction. For example, the land between Raleigh, North Carolina and Cary, North Carolina was extraterritorial jurisdiction, and there is a constant land grab between those two cities. Now most of that land in between is owned entirely by one city or the other, so that way there is no extraterritorial jurisdictions in between those. It's such a hard word to say that many times. So this is one that you'll really need to know if you plan on building anything on your lot, or you have a shed or something like that on there. It's pretty common, but they're things called setbacks. A setback is the distance a structure has to be from your property lines, from other buildings, from the sidewalk or street in front of your property. And most of the time, all of these are used, especially in a subdivision. And the HOA setbacks may differ from the county setbacks, and when that happens, you have to use the stricter of the two. If the county says that you only need to be 2 feet away from the street, but the HOA says you need to be 5 feet away from the street, you must be 5 feet away from the street. You can't go with that 2-foot setback anymore, because 5 feet is a lot more strict. Alright, there are 3 different zoning compliances to remember. There is compliance with zoning, which means you're following all the rules. You have a residential house in a residential neighborhood that's zoned for residential, you're clean. Then there's legal non-conforming use, which means you are not doing something right, but you were before they changed a rule on you. In other words, you were doing something right, but then a rule changed, and now you are no longer conforming to the new rule. However, you are grandfathered in, so you can continue doing what you're doing. This is also called the grandfather rule. And just a side note here, although you can continue doing what you're doing because you are grandfathered in, anytime you need to pull a permit or you need something from the city, they're not going to provide it for you. So you're going to start getting backed further and further into a corner as your building starts deteriorating and other problems start happening. Ultimately, they want you to change from that restaurant to now the mixed residential area, or from the residential to a restaurant or gas station. They're going to try to guide and push you further and further to what their agenda is. Then lastly, there's illegal non-conforming use, which is when you do something wrong and you know you're doing something wrong. Eventually, you're going to be shut down for this one. Variances from zoning ordinances are cases where a property can apply for a variance from a zoning ordinance. Think of a case where someone buys a lot in a subdivision that's backed against a river. Then an ordinance comes up that says that you can't build within 50 feet of that river. That person will probably be able to get a variance approved and be able to build on that lot. This variance now runs with the land. The reason this specific lot may get the approval for this is because that person has now purchased a lot and there's no way they'd be able to sell it or do anything with it without a variance in that zoning. Variances do not resolve encroachments or violations with your HOA. Those are resolved with your neighbors. And let's just hit a couple more types of zoning. We have historic preservation. We have aesthetic zoning, which is where you make it look nice. Then there is spot zoning, which is where you may have a residential area that has one lot that's zoned commercial. Think of a neighborhood that might have one gas station in it or one little convenience store. That's a spot zoning area. Maybe a church. And agents have a reasonable care obligation to disclose any zoning issues. A division of a lot into 2 or more lots is called a subdivision, except for the following. Lots that are 10 acres or more. A division of a 2-acre or smaller lot into 3 or fewer lots by one single owner, and when no public roads are made. Counties will divide what's required to make a subdivision, and a final plat map must be approved with all of its components, including utilities, recreational area, your parks, your roads, and everything else involved. The process to create a subdivision is in the following order. You have your initial planning phase, you have your final planning phase, you have your disposition startup, then you have your final plat map approval. A developer can begin selling the lots before final approval, but can't close on those until you get final plat map approval. I'm going to dive in a little deeper to that next point, but I'm going to read it off here so I just get it 100% correct for you. But before final plat map approval, you can write contracts, you can take reservations, you can even sign contracts and hold deposits, but you cannot close until after the final plat map approval. This can result in a misdemeanor and the county can order the developer to cease all activity. As an agent, you should know street disclosure. As both the buying and the listing agent, you should know who maintains and who is responsible for the road leading up to the house and be sure to disclose that. This is really important in more rural areas where you have several houses sharing a gravel road or some private road. Does the state own it, or is it owned by one of the houses, or is it a shared ownership? This will be referenced in the street disclosure. In a subdivision, dedication is where a developer will ask the state to take responsibility for maintaining the roads in the neighborhood. Acceptance is when the state actually accepts responsibility for those roads. In North Carolina, there are no county roads. Roads here are maintained by NCDOT, municipalities, HOAs and developers, or privately owned. If a road is private, a lender usually requires a maintenance agreement. And again, it's a broker's responsibility to determine who maintains the roads. Check for any red flags for who is responsible for fixing these roads. A key word to know here is interstate, which is when a property crosses over 2 state lines. One of the most important zoning types to know is flood zones. Flood zones change all the time, and the maps are controlled by the Army Corps of Engineers and FEMA. The National Flood Insurance Program is required in some areas and can be very expensive. For buyers looking to get federal housing loans, it is required to have flood insurance if the house is in a flood zone and is ordered by the lender from FEMA. You also have privately imposed land use controls. These are also referred to as restrictive covenants, which we've gone over a little bit in previous chapters, also called CC&Rs. These are private restrictions usually created by developers and are now enforced by private owners. The private owners must enforce these equally across all the properties that are enforced under these same rules. Now for building codes. Most structures require a building permit unless it's something like a tiny shed that you can get from Home Depot or something like that. Building inspectors must be certified by the North Carolina Department of Insurance. Statewide codes are enforced locally and new construction homes must have a certificate of occupancy. The reason for obtaining building permits is to protect and ensure people are safe from poorly done DIY construction projects, honestly. As a realtor, you have a responsibility to watch for any spaces that look like they might be unpermitted. An obvious one would be a new attachment on a house that only has 6-foot high ceilings, or maybe a long staircase that doesn't have a handrail on it. Septic systems are another item that must have a permit. This limits the location and uses that might overload the system. For instance, you don't want a septic that might spill out over to the sidewalk. As a broker, you should verify the type of the system, check for any permits, and then verify the capacity of the system. This is important and probably a test question and is also something that you'll actually use outside of just this exam. I just used it the other day at an open house. The capacity of the septic system dictates the number of bedrooms you can have in your house, not the number of bathrooms. If a septic capacity is set up for 4-bedroom house, you can never have a 5-bedroom house on there and market it as a 5-bedroom house unless you expand the septic tank. And now it's time for our final review. The municipality master plan is usually made per county and is a long-term plan, usually 20 years out, that addresses zoning, facilities, transportation, and conservation. The government has the right to create zoning and comes from police power. Zoning is what gives a piece of land its permitted use, lot size, type of structure, building height, setbacks, style and appearances, and density. Cluster zoning is used to maximize open space in communities. Extraterritorial jurisdiction is the area just outside the city limits that the city still has the power to enforce zoning ordinances in. The types of zoning compliance are legal use, legal non-conforming use, where you were in compliance but zoning changed on you, and then illegal non-conforming use, where you are not complying at all and you know it. Other types of zoning are historic zoning, aesthetic zoning, and spot zoning. A subdivision is a division of land into 2 lots or more. You can go under contract on a lot in a subdivision before the final plat map has been approved, but you can't close on that contract until the final plat map has been approved. Street disclosures are required to see who maintains the roads, and there are no county roads in North Carolina. The Interstate Land Sales Disclosure Act refers to properties that are across state lines. Flood insurance is always required within flood zones if you're obtaining financing. Septic system capacity is determined by the number of bedrooms a house has, not the number of bathrooms. And privately imposed land use controls are enforced by your HOAs and your neighbors. Alright, that is it for Chapter 5. Next is Chapter 6, where we'll be discussing environmental issues. Just so I know I'm not talking into some type of echo chamber, I would love it if you would leave a comment down in the comments below. And if you're not much of a talker, giving me a thumbs up will still let me know that you are at least there. Remember to subscribe so you can keep up with the rest of the series, and it'll also keep me motivated to finish this entire series. Thank you all so much for watching this video on the North Carolina real estate exam prep, and I'll see you on the next one.